When a man goes to the doctor for an embarrassing yet serious illness, he has no idea he's about to become a medical oddity, published in journals around the world. And then we take a look at the story of a young man who's experiencing hallucinations so badly he is eventually committed to a psych ward. But while he's there, he has to navigate between the world of the real and the world of the weird. Is it possible that his hallucinations allow him to peer through the veil, separating life and death? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio.
Actually, I'm a lot freaked out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today, so first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, get on your feet and give it up for one of our legacy Patreon supporters, Khaki Cube. Woohoo, yeah, yes. Rolling on in, a big old cube, khaki colored cube, wobbling on into Dead Rabbit Radio. Why did I stop clapping? He's still wobbling into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Khaki Cube, longtime supporter of Dead Rabbit Radio. Also, he's getting the word out about the show, spreading the word of Dead Rabbit Radio. If you guys can't support the Patreon, just do what Khaki Cube does. He does support the Patreon, but do the other thing he does. Help promote the show. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, you know that we are often number one in El Salvador. We're the number one science podcast in El Salvador. Right now, and for the last couple weeks, we are also the number one science podcast in Zambia. So that's awesome, right? Let's give a round of applause to Zambia. Woo! So I've been looking for some Zambia stories to cover, looking for some cryptids. I guess they have something out there called the pachyderm killer. I mean, listen, man, if you're going to be a monster, might as well go all out and eat elephants. What more of a monster do you need? They also have a serial killer in Zambia. Not anymore. I guess I should preface that. Zambian listeners are like, oh no, he's free again? They had a serial killer in Zambia that is considered to this day the most prolific serial killer time-wise ever. This guy was killing like 3 people a week, and he kept it up for like 10 months. I don't know. It took a while for the cops to even start putting this together. But yeah, so there you go, Zambia. You have a monster that can eat elephants and world record-setting serial killer. We'll talk about that stuff in upcoming episodes. But right now, Khaki Cube, let's get this party started. I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dirigible. We haven't used this in a while. Toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dirigible. Go ahead and climb aboard this big, beautiful blimp as Khaki Cube fires it up. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Fly us all the way out to Lebanon. Nice, leisurely, slow ride headed out to the country of Lebanon. Specifically, we're headed to Beirut, Lebanon, to take a look at the story of a man who went to the doctor. I go to the doctor all the time. Sometimes people say I go to the doctor too much. I disagree. I'm the one paying the medical bills. I can go as much as I want. I know a lot of people who never go to the doctor. They wait until their eyeballs are bleeding and their butthole fell out. And then they're like, oh, maybe I should go to the doctor. Maybe, can you maybe like put me in a wheelchair and dragging your butthole across the ground? Some people never go to the doctor. They wait in the last minute. But no matter if you're like me and you go to the doctor all the time or you're the butthole boy, we don't think we're ever going to end up in a medical journal. When you go to the doctor, you figure, well, you know, this is routine. This is something the doctor's seen 100 times. You don't ever think your doctor, when he's analyzing you, his eyes are all dong, 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 bouncing out because he realizes he gets to write an article for a prestigious medical journal. But that's what's happened in Beirut, Lebanon. We're going to take a look at this guy. We don't have his real name because they don't publish this stuff, privacy laws and all. We're going to call him Joey. Joey is a 38-year-old man living in Beirut he goes to his doctor and he goes, "Hey, doc, man, I got a lot of stuff wrong with me. I probably should have been here. Probably should have taken Jason's advice and been here, a week ago, but here we are. Do you have a garbage can?" Like, God damn it, you're fast forwarding. You're like, is Jason going to do vomiting noises this whole segment here? Listen, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to wish that's all I was doing. Joey's vomiting into this trash can. He's like, "Doc, I'm so sick. I've been sick for like a week. I'm vomiting. I have horrible diarrhea." Like there's any other kind, right? All diarrhea is horrible. "I have severe diarrhea. I'm vomiting all the time, but that's not why I'm here. I could deal with that." Right? You got another garbage can? You got another garbage can? A bigger one, maybe? "I've been throwing up and having diarrhea for a week, doc. That's not why I'm worried. I need you to look at something. I need you to look at my genitals. Something's wrong with my Franken beans." And doctor's like, oh, reluctantly, he's like, "Oh man, I thought this guy was just going to vomit. I could give him something, he'd leave. And now I'm going to have to look at this guy's junk as he pulls his pants down." "Fine, Joey, take your pants off." Joey takes his pants off, and the doctor looks at Joey's penis and goes, "Dear God, never seen anything like this." Well, maybe that's an exaggeration. He might have seen something close to it. Because what happens is Joey's penis is really red. It's really, really red. And it's swollen. So he's like, well, maybe it's like some sort of... did you happen to run naked through a hive of bees? Like, that have possibly happened? Your penis is red and swollen. It's definitely irritated. My doctor training makes me think you might have an STD. But I'm noticing that not only is it red and swollen, which are two words you never want heard to describe your genitals, red and swollen, it's also covered in scabs. Like, I can clearly see... Right now you're eating cornflakes, you're all... I can clearly see this penis you have here has developed scabs. The doctor's all pushing him with his little doctor pin. Yeah, look at that scab's coming off, but there's that other scab on. What happened? Like, is this an STD? Were you banging some chick? You got some STD? And Joey goes, well, listen, I was banging a girl, but she doesn't have an STD, and I don't think this is an STD. And the doctor's like, I don't either. Like, the reddishness and the whole swollen thing, definitely the scabs, don't make me think it's like gonorrhea or anything like that. But we'll run tests. We'll run tests to see if you have an STD. I do want to take a sample, though. So the doctor gets a little cotton swab and starts rubbing it around this dude's, and he's all getting turned on. Joey's like, oh, my fetish. Cotton fetish I have. Oh, I love cotton. Doctor takes a swab, takes some sample, probably fluids or whatever, and sends it to the lab. Probably with a note saying, hurry up, I'm in the room with this guy right now, hope it's not contagious. It goes to the lab, and it comes back. Joey has food poisoning of the penis. The lab work comes back, and what happens is he has on his penis, it's been coated with a bacteria known as Bacillus cereus, which is a specific type of bacteria that mainly grows on rice if you leave it out at room temperature for too long. It actually causes food poisoning. This is a huge cause of food poisoning. People cook rice and they eat half of it. They leave the rest out for too long. You go, well, rice doesn't spoil. There's no milk or eggs or anything in it. I'm going to get an extra helping. But it's been out for too long. This bacteria develops on it. You eat it. You get very, very bad food poisoning. I covered that story a long time ago about that guy who left his Chinese food out for a long time and he had to have his legs amputated because the food poisoning was so bad. Some people dispute that story. It's funny, I did that story and I got a lot of pushback on it. People going, no, he didn't get his legs amputated because he got food poisoning. He got his legs amputated and he had food poisoning at the same time. So the news articles made it sound, I actually did look into that. The news articles made it sound like one caused the other. It sounded like the poor guy had some blood flow issues and food poisoning. But anyways, the point is whether or not your legs are going to get chopped off, don't eat this rice, because you can get really, really bad food poisoning from it. Rice left at room temperature for a long time after it's been cooked. I guess I should add that. You're throwing all your rice away. It's all packaged. You're like, Uncle Ben, you're no longer allowed in this house. Throw it in the garbage can. After it's been soaked in water and cooked, it could develop this. So the doctor goes, okay, that's actually, unfortunately, a pretty common cause of food poisoning, but how did it get on his penis? Was he taking a rice bath? Was he trying to take an ice bath but read it wrong? He took a rice bath? What happened? How did he get this on him? How did he get this on his genitals? So the doctor asked Joey, he goes, well, we did some lab work, and apparently all of the swelling and the redness and the scabs are because you have food poisoning on your penis. So that answers one question, but it opens up a whole bunch more. How is it possible that you got food poisoning on your penis? And Joey's like, let me think about that as he's holding back bile in his mouth. Let me think about that. Maybe a garbage can in front of me will help my memory. Blah. He's throwing up again. He goes, well, I'll tell you what happened. I did eat some rice about a week ago that was left out at room temperature. You say that's what causes it? The doctor's like, yeah. And Joey's like, well, yeah, that's kind of what I did. I ate some rice at room temperature. I'd done it before. Never had a problem with it. And I became super sick. And I began vomiting and had severe diarrhea. The doctor's like, okay, yeah. And okay, I'm still waiting for how it got on your penis. And Joey's like, I know, I'm just building up the suspense. Well, my wife wanted to have sex with me. I don't know why. I'm clearly not well. Super sweaty, vomiting all the time. The aforementioned diarrhea, but my wife wanted to have sex with me. So I said, sure. So I start having sex with my wife, and it gets real hot and heavy. Like, we're really into it. The medical journal described it as, quote, vigorous sex. So really into it. But remember, he has food poisoning. He's had food poisoning for quite a few days. And he goes, I was having sex with my wife so hard, it was making me nauseous. It was making me nauseous. So then I threw up. You're like, Jason, you're making this story up. There's no way there was any medical journal. You're making this story up. Joey goes, I had sex with my wife and it was so vigorous it made me sick to my stomach. I mean, I was already sick to my stomach, but this didn't help. She's like, hey, after this, you want to go on a roller coaster ride? He's all, blah. Then we can go to the clam chowder restaurant. He said, I had sex with my wife and I ended up vomiting. Vomiting all over myself. And part of myself is my penis. So what the doctor figured out was that Joey vomited on his own penis with such infected bile that there was enough of this bacteria in his vomit. Bro, even right now I'm second guessing whether or not I should have covered this. I'm like, this might be a little too intense. Let's go back to that Zambian serial killer. Killed 47 people in 10 months. He threw up with such infected bile that it was just the contact of it on his genitals coated them in this bacteria, and the bacteria began to thrive in this warm environment outside of his body and began to cause redness and swelling and scabs. This has never happened before. This is a one-of-a-kind case as far as the medical community says. They put a little asterisk on there. They go, honestly, this might have happened more, just no one ever reported it. This is the first time someone's ever had a food-borne infection, like a food illness, on their penis. And it was a real mystery for them to figure it out once they figured out he had this bacteria down there. But once they figured that out, the doctor goes, well, okay. Now the doctor's throwing up. He's all, blah. That's so disgusting. Blah. Nurse, can you bring in another garbage can? He goes, listen, we know how to treat this food poisoning illness. So they gave him something called fusidic acid, which he has to apply to his penis. Listen, man, I don't care how bad of a shape I'm in. If the doctor's like, yeah, sure, I have this acid that'll clean up the scabs on your genitals real fast, I'll be like, I don't know, I might just see how nature plays this one out. Fusidic acid, he had to put it on. And after a month of doing that, his penis is completely healed. And the doctor helped treat the underlying food poisoning. Which is interesting because as I was looking at another story, I go, whenever I've gotten food poisoning, and oddly enough, it's only been twice. I ate with a dirty fork once. You're like, Jason, why did you do that? And why are you telling us? I just grabbed the wrong fork. I remember looking at it and going, that's clean enough. I ate with a dirty fork and got super ill. So now that was a long time ago. So now I'm very, very careful about washing my silverware. I'm a big boy now. I do adult things. I wash my silverware. And the other time was I bought a pork sandwich, like a McRib type sandwich out of a vending machine. Whenever I tell this story, people are like, no, you're just an idiot. We're actually surprised you don't have food poisoning weekly. When I worked at Wells Fargo a long time ago, I would go to the vending machine. It was like refrigerated, quote unquote, refrigerated vending machine. I'd order a pork sandwich, like a McRib sandwich. And yummy, yummy, yummy. I'd eat it up. It was like $2 back then. This is like in mid-2000s. And I ate them all the time. On my days off, I go to work. I was like, oh, I need another pork sandwich. I'm like, Jason, you're not even supposed to be here today. Yeah, I'm hungry. And I remember one day I ate one and I got violently ill. And I didn't know what caused it. I was like, what? Clearly it couldn't be the pork. Couldn't be the pork sandwich in the vending machine. Clearly it wasn't that. What could it be? I didn't know what caused it. And then I took a couple days off work. And when I came back, I remember walking by that vending machine. And I go, ooh, yummy. Now that I'm feeling better, time for a little bit of pork in my belly. I walked by the vending machine and I looked over and I saw the sandwich in there. And I immediately started to retch. And I realized that was food poisoning. Because a lot of times after you have bad food poisoning, if you ever see that food again or smell it, your body is like, bro, don't. And after that, I could never I never had another one of those before. And I figured that's why I was sick. Because I could look at everything else. I'm like, tuna melt in the vending machine? Yummy. But I couldn't look at that pork sandwich anymore. It repulsed me. But I'm surprised I don't get food poisoning anymore. But interesting, because both times that I've had food poisoning, it's always been 2 days max. Usually it's one bad day, and then the second day I'm kind of recovering. You can have food poisoning. I didn't know this. I was looking this up for the story. You can have food poisoning for up to a week, and sometimes even longer, depending on how bad it is. And they classify it. And what's interesting is it can be so bad that can cause dehydration, obviously. Figure that because of the constant diarrhea. It can give you a fever. You figure that because you're sick with something, your body's trying to defeat it. It can also warp your thought process. You can have such bad food poisoning that it changes your thinking and your behavior. But crazy, crazy stuff. That is the story of a man who went to the doctor hoping to just get treated for his penis scabs, but ended up becoming a medical mystery, right? Luckily, it was solved. The doctor was able to figure it out. But a crazy story. None of us expect when we go to the doctor that we will end up in a journal someday. But this guy, he's living the dream. He's living the dream. He is the one and only case of someone who had food poisoning on their genitals. Khaki Q, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world famous Carpenter Copter. We are leaving behind Lebanon. Why don't you fly us all the way out to a mental hospital? I know I just did one of these yesterdays, but I want to do another really quick Dead Rabbit Radio recommend. Since it's October, I want to be recommending you more stuff. There's a lot of movies that I've seen and they're older, and I go, everyone's seen that movie. But then I remember that's not true, right? Not everyone's seen that movie. Some of you guys may have never heard of it. So I'm going to be going over some older movies that I think really hold up. This is a movie I just saw last summer, and it's just as good as the first time I saw it. If you guys are looking for a great creature feature movie to watch for spooktacular, spooky, ooky Halloween, Dead Rabbit Radio recommends an older movie called Deep Rising. It's pretty basic as far as the plot goes. Actually, no, now that I think about it, it's kind of convoluted. It involves a jewel thief and terrorists and pirates and a cruise ship. But the basic setup of this movie is there's a jewel thief, a group of terrorists, and a group of pirates who board an abandoned cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. Now, it's not supposed to be abandoned. This was actually like the jewel of the line. It was full of thousands of people. It was this massive cruise ship. And the terrorists wanted to take everybody hostage or rob the bank and the terrorists wanted to take a bunch of hostages or rob the bank in the cruise ship. I don't really remember. Because none of that matters about 10 minutes in, because when everyone gets aboard the cruise ship, they start to figure out why it's empty. This ship is under siege by this massive underwater Cthulhu-like entity. It's nothing but tendrils and mouths that are going through the hallways and devouring all human flesh. And it's an absolutely fantastic... This movie had to come out in the late 90s. I think it stars Treat Williams and Famke Janssen from the X-Men movies. It's action-packed. It's very gory. I don't necessarily think it's scary, but the special effects really hold up. The stunt work, they use real explosions and real guns. Fake bullets, obviously, but nowadays everything's CGI. It's refreshing to see this type of movie. You just have a bunch of armed people who don't like each other. The pirates and the terrorists are against each other, but they have to team up to fight this giant monster. Or do they? Lots of backstabbing, lots of double and triple dealings going on. It's a very fantastic movie. It's action-packed. It's gory. It's man against monster. Fantastic movie. If you're looking for something, a creature feature, something that's not too spooky, like Long Legs or Smile 2, Dead Rabbit Radio recommends Deep Rising. Again, it came out like in 97. I just saw it last year. Again, I've seen it multiple times. Fantastic movie. Really holds up. Dead Rabbit Radio recommends Deep Rising. We're at this mental hospital. We're about to meet this young man. Let's call him Tom. He didn't give his real name. And Tom's sitting in the psych ward, just reflecting on the recent past, we shall say. He's just like, oh man, how did I end up here? He said what happened was he was beginning to experience a true spiritual awakening. But to everyone else around him, to his friends and his family, it seemed like he was suffering from psychosis. Which those two things, I mean, it is a thin line, isn't it? That you can walk between prophet and madman. Tommy's like, I'm seeing the truth. I'm seeing the reality that is obscured by everything in this world. The spiritual truth, the one truth, is now visible to me. But the people closest to him are like, Tom, you're going crazy. But once he starts having hallucinations, his loved ones can't really... I'm sure at first when he was talking about having a spiritual awakening and seeing the world for how it really is, a lot of times you could be like, well, whatever. Everyone can start saying the weird stuff and you're not immediately going to have him locked up. But once he started experiencing hallucinations, the people closest to him were like, no, this has gone beyond him just thinking he has this answer, that he knows the answer to everything that he sees. Now he's actually hallucinating. Now it's actually a danger to himself, not a danger to other people. So they had him sent to the psych ward. While he's in the psych ward, actually his very first night, Tom meets a young girl who we will call April. And right away they click. They just totally know that although they're both going to have to be here for a while, It may not be that bad. I got a friend, at least. I got a friend on the inside. They click, and they're talking, and Tom realizes that she has tons of tattoos, which he's really into. He's really into tattoos and the art behind tattoos. So he starts asking her about them, and she starts explaining them. She's like, oh yeah, I got this tattoo. This is like a rose bush. I got the time that I rode my bike into a rose bush when I was 6. This is to commemorate that. This right here is the Third Eye Blind logo. See this one on my kneecap? That's a tattoo of a kneecap. She started running out of ideas. She's like, yeah, I just kind of let him do whatever. But 2 of the most, to Tom, kind of memorable tattoos that she had was that on each of her index fingers, she had what looked like a lightning bolt, which reminded him of the SS lightning bolt that the Nazis used. They have that stylized S, kind of looks like a lightning bolt. Now, if she just had one of them, he would go, oh, okay, it's a lightning bolt. But if you have 2 of them, he goes, wow, what a bold choice. Like, that's clearly if she's not a neo-Nazi, it would be mistaken that she was a neo-Nazi. And she has them very visible. On one index finger, she has one of the lightning bolts. And on the other one, she has a second lightning bolt. And on her other index finger, another lightning bolt. One of these lightning bolts was just the outline, while the other lightning bolt, on the other hand, was fully colored in. So a solid black lightning bolt on one index finger, on the other index finger, just the outline. But it did make him think, wow, like, that's a pretty bold choice. People are going to confuse that. But she doesn't explain those. He doesn't ask. He's probably a little afraid to know the answer. She's like, oh, yes, let me tell you about Europa, the final battle, my favorite documentary of all time. You're like, okay, this is going to be a weird state of psych ward, weirder than I thought. So the next day, Tom runs into April again. Hey, April, how's it going? Just hanging out, committed to a psychotic ward. Not much to do. You want to play chess or watch television? Oh, yeah, sure we could figure out something. And they start chatting. Now, while he's talking to April, he realizes something. The solid lightning bolt on her index finger isn't there. It's gone. Now, she only has the outline of a lightning bolt on one finger, and on the other finger, there's nothing. And that actually kind of bummed Tom out. Not because he was hoping she was a neo-Nazi, but because he realized, I'm just hallucinating. Like, I am hallucinating. I'm 100% not able to determine what's real and what's not. Like, it's a good thing that I'm in the psych ward. That's a pretty benign hallucination, but, when you're hallucinating, who knows what you could see or how you could react to it. But it kind of bummed him out. He realized that, this was going to be kind of a long mental health journey. Because at this point, especially he's writing this in retrospect years later, but even at this point, he felt like he was having a spiritual awakening, but he also knew he was standing on a precipice between sanity and insanity, like we talked on yesterday's episode about. So it kind of bummed him out. He's like, I was hallucinating. 2 weeks later, he's still in the psych ward, and he's being treated. He's being treated for his mania and for his hallucinations, and the hallucinations have stopped. Whether it's a combination of rest and medication and therapy, I don't know how they were able to get him back into a right state of mind, but he goes, the hallucinations stopped. I stopped having hallucinations. I knew I was on the right path, getting healthy. And I was still hanging out with April this whole time. But after 2 weeks, I thought, oh, dude, you know what? I'm going to tell her about that hallucination I had, because that was weird. Like, I hallucinated a tattoo. How weird is that? So I'm going to tell April. And he does. He's talking to April, and he goes, hey, I know this is odd. I mean, I'm sure we've both heard a lot of weird stories being in this psych ward. But remember that first night when we met, we were chatting and you were describing all your tattoos and, you know, it was really cool. April's like, yeah, I do remember that. Tom goes, this is going to sound weird, but I actually hallucinated a tattoo on you. April's like, really? He's like, yeah, it's weird. It's super weird. He goes, you see how on that finger you have that outline of that lightning bolt? On your other hand, you had another tattoo on that index finger on your other hand of a solid black lightning bolt. So it was like matching lightning bolts. I saw one on one hand and one on the other. And it was weird. I could have sworn you had it, but the next day, it was gone. And I knew that I had hallucinated that. That has to be a record, hallucinating a tattoo on somebody. Oh, it's pretty weird. Tom looks at April. She is stunned into silence. Her face is drained of all its blood. It's pale white at this point, and her jaw is wide open. Truly shocked at what Tom had just told her. Tom goes, April, what's wrong? A few weeks before you came here, my twin brother killed himself. We had matching tattoos. I got an outline of a lightning bolt on my index finger. And on his index finger, he had a solid black lightning bolt. April goes and gets a photo of her and her twin brother. She said this photo was taken when I visited him in the hospital. And she showed it to Tom. And in that photo, he clearly sees on April's brother's finger the solid black lightning bolt. This is an interesting story. This was posted on the X board earlier this month. It's a fascinating story because on one, I think there's two different ways you could look at it. Well, a couple. But first, let's address this. Tom saw... Well, what did Tom see? Was in that state of mania and hallucinations, whatever was happening that night, he saw basically her brother's tattoo on her hand. Like, that is what he saw. But why? How? These are questions we don't really get answers to when it comes to the paranormal, but it doesn't mean we stop asking them. Because he never saw it since. He only saw it that first night. Was it possible that because he was still wrapped up in this world of he's having this spiritual awakening, he's experiencing these hallucinations, that he is able to see something? But then again, the question is what? It's not like he saw the brother's hand. He simply saw the tattoo. And he never saw it again. So did it allow... I could even say like he pierced the veil and he saw the spirit of her brother, but it's not like he saw the brother standing behind her or walking by her room or anything like that, like he's keeping an eye over her. If anything, he saw a piece of his skin on her. The tattoo. It didn't look like a guy's hand. It just looked like her hand, but it had the tattoo. Very, very puzzling. We have the whole issue of them being twins, I think can kind of throw this for a loop. If you had her and a couple weeks before Tom shows up at the psych ward, let's say her boyfriend killed himself. Or her husband killed himself. And I'm assuming she's at the psych ward because she's dealing with that. But who knows, right? Who knows? I assumed that the brother was in the hospital as a result of the suicide. But who knows? That could have been from previous thing. That'd all be conjecture. Let's say that her husband had a matching tattoo of this lightning bolt. Would it appear on her? Because her and her twin, I mean, you can't literally get any closer than that. They are the same flesh. They come from the same egg. I mean, you can be closer to a husband than you are to your siblings, even closer to a husband than you are to your twin. Spiritually, maybe even that you have to put a caveat on. Physically, it would be hard to argue. You're twins. So would the ghost of let's say that this ghost of her brother is with her. Basically, that's how you can interpret this, right? That the ghost of her brother is with her. And it appears as the black lightning bolt that Tom saw. The husband, even if he had matching lightning bolts, he may not be able to pull such a quote-unquote parlor trick. He may only be able to appear as a ghost standing behind her. And Tom would have said, hey, remember that night I met you a couple weeks ago? Yeah, I remember that. And we were talking about your tattoos. Yeah, it was really interesting. It was just a hallucination, but I saw a man walk up behind you, and he was kind of buff, and he wore this pendant, and she freaks out. She's like, oh my God, my husband used to work out all the time and had that pendant. That's how I think. I think Tom still may have seen something, but it would have been different. Flesh of my flesh. Literally, in this case, the tattoo appears on her skin. It's interesting because did his hallucinations, did his such a tenuous grasp of reality allow him to see the unreal, to see the paranormal? That's a big question with this. But then I also think this, and we'll wrap it up like this. This is a question. I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it, because I think it's situational. But how close is too close after death? Situational, obviously, right? If it's someone that you truly loved and you lost them, you may cry yourself to sleep for years. You may not change your sheets because it has that indentation of that person you loved always there. It may be a traumatic experience that completely derails your life, and you hope that they are there with you forever. You only wish that you could feel them there, so you didn't feel that loss anymore. Fair. There are other people that die who while you love them, you don't want them around you 24/7. You definitely don't want them as part of your skin. And we don't know the relationship between April and her twin brother, how it was in life. It may have been spectacular. They may have been best friends, and she may go, well, it's so reassuring to know that he's not gone, even in death, he's with me. But what's interesting is her reaction to it. Because we're getting the story from Tom, and he doesn't say, oh, she was super relieved and she told me, oh, I always knew he could never leave me. Oh, I'm so relieved. No, her face was drained of blood. Her jaw was dropped to the ground. She was in shock. And what's funny is that she went and got proof. And I think that's fair, because in a psych ward, it would be really hard to trust people, especially when it came to paranormal experiences. She had a photo and she showed him, look, I'm not making this up. How did you see my brother's finger? How did you see my brother's tattoo on me? So again, it's not that you just have a watchful guardian standing behind you. There's something so much more violating with this. I imagine, listen, I've never lost anyone super, super close to me. I've never been in a relationship with someone and then they die. As far as I know, actually. At this point, I'm 48. I've dated a lot of people. Some of them may have died at this point, but because they'd be my age as well. But the point is that, as far as I know, it hasn't happened. And if it's someone that I truly loved and I lost them, I would mourn them. And in a way, I may want them to stay with me. I may want to know that I'm not alone, that they're behind me. That doesn't mean I want them in my skin. I may have a hard time changing my desktop wallpaper, or being afraid that my voicemails will get erased because that's the last recording I have of her voice. I understand all of those struggles people go through after a loved one passes away. And they do want them back. But do you want them in you? do you want their flesh on your flesh? It's almost a story that goes too far. Not like the penis story. That was just far enough. The comforting spirit. Hey, I saw a man standing behind you that night, and he was kind of watching over you from I thought he was a security guard at first, and we were talking for a bit, and then he kind of looked at me and he nodded and he walked through a door. And it's funny, I think I was hallucinating because I realized the next day that was a emergency alarm door and nothing. And he describes him, oh my God, that's my twin brother. He killed himself a couple weeks ago. Oh my God, hopefully he's moved on to a better place. Thank you for telling me that story. That gives me such joy to know that he hasn't left, to know that he's in peace, that he's not hurting anymore. If anything, April seemed like she was traumatized by this story, traumatized by this event. And I think that's a fair reaction. Loss is a horrible thing that we have to go through. It is just a natural order of the world, whether it's losing a puppy, losing a parent, losing a friend. It's horrible. It's always horrible. And we always want to think they're in a better place. And at the same time, that they're still nearby. That they are still watching over us in some capacity. But we always want to believe that even in death, our loved ones are still close to us. But how close is too close? DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be your email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today.